Magandang gabi po, Luzon, Visayas at Mindanao. Kumusta po kayo? Sana po ay tayo lahat ay nasa mabuting kalagayan. Muli, narito po tayo sa isang gabi ng talakayan tungkol sa kasaysayan at kultura ng ating bansa, lalo na dito sa Cavite, kung saan ako naroon ngayon. Kung mababalikan po natin noong nakaraang linggo, napag-usapan natin yung Philippine Archaeological Management. Napag-usapan natin ang tungkol sa paano ba nagsasagawa ng pagbubungkal, pagpaaral ng ating prehistory, kasama natin si Ms. Maylin Lising. This time, ang pag-uusapan naman po natin ay tungkol sa Heritage Museum Management. Dahil sa buong bansa, napakarami po ang nagbubuo ng museo, at merong museo na nasa eskwelahan, may museo naman na under ng National Historical Commission of the Philippines, may mga private museums, at meron din namang mga maliliit na mga parang gallery lamang, pero eventually ay binubuo into very parang museum like status, pero yun nga po, sa dami po ng mga koleksyon na makukuha sa ating bansa, iba-iba yan eh. Isipin nyo, sa span ng ating Philippine history, merong pre-colonial, meron nga may archaeology, yung pre-history, pre-Spanish. Merong Spanish period, merong revolution, may American period, Japanese occupation, even yung contemporary period, may mga museums. Ang dami po natin nakikita mga museo ng mga ng mga pangulo, So, ang tanong diyan, paano nga ba natin aayusin ang lahat ng 'yan, Paano natin kilala sa madla, sapagkat meron din sistema ang operasyon ng isang museo. Kaya ngayong gabi po na ito ay papalad po tayo at napagbigyan tayo ng isa sa mga kilala nating director, curator ng isang museum dito sa Cavite, particular sa De La Salle University, Dasmariñas. Ito po yung Museo de la Salle, At ang ating pong guest para sa gabi ito ay ang Pangulo ng Southern Luzon Association of Museum of Islam, Siya rin po ay sa NEDA Region 4A sa Subcommission on Culture, Kasama siya diyan, at sa Cavite Province, Cultural Council, actually magkasama po kami sa council na ito. At tumutulong din siya sa City of Imus sa Cultural Association, rather Cultural Council, So anyway, hindi ko na ho pagtatagalin para mas mahaba ang usapan natin. Ang tinutukoy ko po ay walang iba kundi si Ms. Cecille Gelicame. Ma'am, magandang gabi po.
Hi, Sir Manny. Magandang gabi.
Kumusta kayo, ma'am?
Mabuting-mabuti, sir. Good evening, and thank you for inviting me to your very special program, and congratulations po for this. At i-promote natin para maraming manood.
Oo, masalamat po. Sabi ko nga, like, subscribe, and click the notification bell.
Like, share, follow, and comment. Sabi. Yes.
Alam niyo mga kakampi, mga kabayani, si Ms. Cecille po ay nakakasama natin kasi pareho kami nagtatrabaho sa De La Salle University, Dasmariñas, At pero mas matanda yata ako dito sa babaeng ito.
Oh yes, very much.
Napasok ako sa La Salle 1998 ako na full time. Kayo ma'am,
1999 ka, sir?
98 full time.
98. So hindi naman tayo nagkakalayo ng edad, sir, talaga sa totoo. Kasi 'di ba, ang alam ko magka-generation tayo na mahilig tayong sumakay ng hataw na jeep dati sa Novaliches.
Yun nga po, isa pang alam niyo si Cecille ay napag-alaman natin na Novaliches din pala ito. At
yes,
during that time, para lang kami nagpapatintero kasi hindi pa rin kami magkakilala nun,
Tama, so, yes, sir. Yun nga, sir. Actually, yung kwento natin, sir, hindi naman tayo magkakalala nun. Pero nag-abot tayo sa La Salle. And then, ako po ay 2000 pumasok. So, 21 years in De La Salle, Dasmariñas with the Museo de La Salle. And I think that's when we started po our working relationship nung ang Cavite Study Center at that time was holding office inside the museum.
Oo nga,
Magkatapat po yung ating opisina, if you remember, sir.
Sa madaling salita, naging museum piece kami.
Yes, for a while. Yes, for a while. Correct.
Grabe, no? Parang kung babalikan ko mga picture natin dati, ano yung itsura namin no? 20 years ago? Oh my God.
Opo. Ano pa tayo nun, sir? Mga, ano tawag mo rito? Batang-bata. At mga, ano pa
Diba?
tayo nun? Ano tawag nila doon? Healthier.
Tama ka dyan, ma'am, no? Actually, pwede na natin sabihin part na tayo ng heritage, no? Ng Dela
Oh,
sa
yes.
Dasmariñas.
Oo, sir. Wait lang. Ako hindi pa ako part ng heritage, sir. Kasi 'di ba pag sinabi mong heritage, according to the heritage law, that's 50 years pataas. So, sure ako hindi pa ako heritage piece. Ewan ko lang ikaw.
Buwan na lang, ma'am. Buwan na lang.
Wala na.
Pero
Diba?
kayo talaga ba, taga-Novaliches kayo?
Sir, ano rin kami doon. That's where I actually grew up. But my parents are my father is from Bulacan, my mother is in Ilongga. And then and then they grew up in Caloocan. We grew up in Quezon City, in Novaliches. And now we're residing in Cavite. O diba kung ano-ano na?
Saan kayo sa Cavite ngayon?
Imus, sir. Imus.
Imus. Palad ang mga taga-Imus.
Imus 21 years ago. Or 20 years ago, rather. Because of my work with Museo de la Salle.
Talagang yun na. Sabagay talaga, yan ang na-envision ng mga ni Governor Remulla before. Yung dating governor, no? Yung tatay ni John Vic, no? Na sinasabi niya na yung migration because of work, no? Maraming ganyan. So, kasama tayo dyan.
Kasama tayo dyan. Kasi sir, at that time, I think we were part of that, ano tawag mo doon? Parang influx of migrants in Cavite. When Makati, the promise po of real estate developers then for those for those, ang tawag mo dyan, yung mga residential units being sold, subdivision. The promise at that time was Cavite is only like 30 minutes, 20 minutes away from Makati.
Yeah.
Diba? And totoo yun noon. Noon.
Tapos ang nangyari, hindi naman napupunta sa Makati, dito na sa Dasmariñas.
Correct. Totoo. Kasi dumami na rin naman opportunities.
Yeah, dispersal of development, ika nga, di ba?
Yes.
Pero nung pumunta kayo sa Museo de la Salle, during that time, ang background nyo ay, about museum work na talaga? Or, paano kayo na-engage sa museum work? Ano ba ang background nyo sa grad school, sa undergrad, grad school, or paano?
Ano, sir, I'm actually a graduate of UP and UP Manila, to be very particular or specific. And my degree program at UP at that time was in BA Philippine Arts, major in Arts Administration. So ito yung mga panahon na mag-iisip ka kung tutuloy ka ba or not at kasi magkakatrabaho ka ba after or wala. Yun yung reality talaga.
Kasi parang hindi considered na trabaho, parang ano lang, parang hobby, mga gano'n.
Opo, totoo sir. Kasi nung time namin, malakas po yung notion na arts are for the elites. Malakas yun noon. Hindi naman kami elite, my gosh. Kaya hindi mo alam kung anong papasukan kong trabaho after. Actually, nag-apply ako sa bangko, sa teller, mga ganun. Mag-pencil cut na palda, tsaka mag-eyeshadow na blue, mga ganun. Yun yung mga, parang mag-graduate ako ng 4-year course. Tapos pagkatapos mo gumraduate, titingin ka sa Manila Bulletin. Tapos maghanap ka doon.
Ako dyan,
Tapos maghanap ka doon ng trabaho. Yun.
Panahon na yan. So, arts, ang talagang line mo, no?
Yes, sir. Yun yung naging looking back, I think it's destiny for me looking back. Kasi sir, I tried several times to shift course, several attempts. to shift to Diliman kasi taga ano ako sir Quezon City, 'di ba? So UP Manila is in Padre Faura. And then I tried shifting to Mascom. Imagine mo kung Mascom ako ngayon. I tried shifting to Mascom and then to other liberal arts courses in Diliman. Pero ang daming stops at that time. And then after a year of being in UP taking up with Philippine arts at that time, on my second year, siguro mga first sem, that was I had my first ever visit to the Metropolitan Museum of Manila when it was still, I mean, during its heydays. And then I fell in love with that museum. And then I told myself, ay, hindi na ako mag-shift. Pero gusto ko dito ako mag-work. Sabi kong ganun.
Okay.
So, hindi na ako talaga nag-shift. And indeed, I did apprenticeship at the Met, and Met became my first job.
Who's the curator then?
At that time, it was headed by Miss Corazon Alvina,
okay.
who became a member of the board of the Museo de la Salle and a colleague. Ganun.
So, pwede ba natin sabihin na Porter J ka ni Ma'am Cora Alvina?
Hindi. Nakakahiya naman kay Miss Cora. Hindi naman. But I've been trained. She's among the most esteemed person I truly respect po in the field of museum. She, Miss Cora, by the way, used to be the National Museum Director after Met.
After Met? Wow,
after Met.
So how long did you sa Met?
How long, sir? I from apprenticeship up to my first job, mga 3 years then. And then after that, so at the Met, I was handling education and outreach already for museums, for exhibition, for outreach. And then after Met, several months of lag time. And then I was invited again to work with Museo de la Salle. At the Met, sir, I didn't apply. They called me kasi I did apprenticeship there. And then they offered and asked if I was willing to join. That was during the time na busy ako magbilog-bilog sa classified ads ng Manila Bulletin. So gulat na gulat ako noon na tinawagan ako ng Met. So yon. And then when I left Met, I was surprised again several months after to receive a phone call and to be invited naman to work with Museo de la Salle. So imagine the dilemma of you living in Quezon City.
Yeah, oo nga.
Offered a job in Cavite at that time. Parang, lang paano? And I had at that time we had a 4 or 5 months old baby. So yung dilemma mo, paano talaga? Yun, yung mabigat na challenge.
Pero pagpunta mo sa Museo de la Salle, full-time job na kaagad yun, ano?
Sa atin kasi sir, di ba, ano ka muna, may mga probationary status. When I was invited for Museo de la Salle, it was for a full-time post. Full-time post. Tsaka Museo de la Salle talaga, to do museum work. Again, di ba, I left Met, and then may several months of unemployment. Again, I did the Manila Bulletin bilog-bilog. I'm applying again ng mga odd jobs, and then suddenly you get to receive another call to work in a museum. And then I went to La Salle, and then of course again I fell in love with the campus and the museum. Then I said maybe I will work here, and so I did. Kaya ako sinasabi sir na maybe what I'm doing now in terms of museum practice is really destined to happen. Yun.
Kasi arts yun noon no? Talaga nasa linya ng arts.
Ayaw akong sir, hindi ako matanggap sa bank teller. Hindi ko maintindihan Hindi talaga. Hindi ko maintindihan, hindi ako matanggap sa bank teller. Bakit? Mga ganon.
Naging no?
Not meant
to be.
Oo, not meant to be.
Naku,
yun.
Kasi ako, Pulsar graduate ako ng undergrad. Ano kaya ang pupuntahan ko ngayon?
Anong destiny mo? Ayun lang ang destiny. 'di
So,
ba?
mga
So yun,
ano, no, ang pagkakaiba ng ano ang pagkakaiba ng ano no ng Met with the Museo de la Salle in your experience?
magkaiba sila sir in terms of one, types of collection, meaning type of
Mhm.
museum. Kasi Met is definitely an arts museum because Met is exhibiting modern and contemporary arts. Talagang ano siya, ah, iba. Museo de la Salle is a heritage museum at that matter. So, ano
Mhm.
siya, iba rin yung type of collection niya, ganyan.
Mhm.
It's also a university museum because it's situated inside a university and it's run also. Its main function is to provide support to its academic community. While Met is
Mhm.
really it's a foundation, but its clientele is really different.
Mhm.
Yun.
Tama, no?
Tayo kasi sir, ang primary audience natin as identified by the museum would be the students of our university in De La Salle University of
Tama.
Dasma. Mm. So
Mhm.
magkaiba sila sir in terms of nature of collection and then type of museum. Kasi marami pong iba't ibang klaseng classification ng museum. So,
Mhm.
akala po na, doon po sa mga hindi masyadong familiar, we have arts museum, we have university museum, or heritage museum, we have history museums, kagaya ng mga nasa
Mhm.
city. We have zoo. Zoo is an animal museum. Aviary is
Mhm.
a bird museum. Botanical garden is a plant museum. So mga
Museum.
ganon. Opo. Maraming
Mhm.
klase.
Actually, nabanggit mo nga yung Heritage Museum kasi dito sa ating bansa, tulad ng nabanggit ko kanina, ang dami talagang mga interested na magtayo ng museum, no? Yung iba, mga personal collection, family
Yeah.
heirloom, no? Yung iba naman, tama ka, katulad nung sa setup ng Lasal, nasa isang university, no? So, ano ba yung, anyway, mapasok na tayo din sa medyo seryoso na bagay, no? Ano ba yung mga challenges, no, ng isang heritage museum? Pag sinabi ba natin heritage museum, ito na yung tumutungkol sa history natin, ano? Tama ba? Ano ba ang karaniwang concept ng isang heritage museum?
Pag, yan, thank you for asking that, sir. Pag sinabi kasi nating heritage museum po, di ba sa notion naman natin ay, pag sinabi nating heritage, pag pinasimple natin yung word na yon, ibig sabihin ng heritage ng pamana.
Mhm.
Pag dinagdagan pa natin siya ng ano, ng kumbaga qualifiers, lalo na ngayon may RA 166 or Philippine
Yeah,
Heritage,
oo. Yeah,
50
heritage
years
list.
old and above. So if the type of collection that your museum is exhibiting and then it's depicting a very specific period or lifestyle of a certain period,
Mhm.
then it qualifies as a heritage museum at that.
Mhm.
So yun po yung mangyayari. But of course, yun pong ating classification or type of classification of your museum is also an articulation of the vision mission drafted or approved by your board. Kasi kahit
Yeah,
heritage
okay.
museum ka, you can actually change or adjust your classification
Mhm.
depending on the
Mhm.
direction that your board is going to
Mm, okay.
dictate or determine. So, mag-iiba rin kasi pag ito yung vision mission mo, ito yung vision mo, that vision will dictate your direction strategically, di ba?
Tama, tama.
So in which case, your type of museum can also change or vary depending on the mission that your museum is set to do, has been set to do. Yun.
So yan yung mga corporate ano, siyempre parang corporate ano yan eh, orientation kasi mayroong board eh, no? Pero kung
Yes.
halimbawa yung mga, hindi ko masasabi fly by night, no? Pero halimbawa yun yung mga yan, isang pamilya, naglagay ng isang parang yung bahay nila, ginawa nila museum sa ilalim. Eh, yun eh, family, ano lang yun, no?
Family
Ano
museum,
ba yun?
yes.
Heritage museum pa rin siya.
Opo, definitely. It can be classified as that. Ano sir, uh, family museums are also considered museums per se. In fact, community
Mhm.
museums Kung yun yung,
Tama,
diba?
ano.
Kasi iba pa rin po yung community museums. Family museum, kung mayroon kayong family heirloom or family heritage,
Tama.
or you come from a prominent family and you just like your collections to be um, preserved, safeguarded, and you have all the resources to display everything, including your house. Ganyan. Ang tandaan natin, sir, there is ICOM definition of what a museum is. Yun po yung
Okay.
sinusunod natin. ICOM is the International Council of Museums, and
Okay.
ICOM defines museum as a public space for learning, enjoyment, and research, and open to the public.
Oh,
So, kung
general
ikaw
din
ay oo, yun yung technical term niya, sir.
Okay.
So, kung ikaw ay hindi open to the public, then we have to rethink on your classification, on a technical definition na. Kasi we have ICOM, diba? So, dapat open ka to the public, and you are sharing your collection to the public, whether for a fee or libre. It doesn't matter. For as long as you're sharing it, then you can be classified as a museum based on the technical definition. So, yun. So, family museums, if they are open to the public, then of course, why not? They are classified indeed as museums. Community museums, yan po ngayon yung dumadami. Sabi niyo, di ba, maraming gusto magtayo ng museo ngayon.
Yeah,
Actually, yung community museum po yung maraming gustong magtayo ngayon. Lalo na po, many are doing cultural mapping.
Oo nga, ano?
So, after po ng cultural mapping, wherein they've gathered po their cultural inventory lists, then saan nila ilalagay saan nila yung repository of their tangible movable heritage. So the communities or the LGUs, next step usually would be to put up a community museum. Yun, under the LGU.
Oo nga, kasi mandate na yan no? May mandate na, kailangan ay mag-conform kayo.
Yeah.
That's why you have the NGCA cultural mapping,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Tama.
Yun, So, yung sabi natin 50 years and above, yun yung can be classified as heritage, no?
As per RA 166 or the National Heritage Act 2009, yes, sir.
Kasi meron mga books na, baka library na babagsak yun. Heritage library, yun ang bagsak na siguro. So, so kung pamana siya, mga artifacts na definitely luma na siya. Ano ang mga challenges encountered pag gusto mong magtayo ng ganyan?
So, ako, sir, personally, kung tatanungin mo, sasabihin namin, ang guidance po na binibigay ko is, if we are going to put up a museum, if we are going to borrow, seek donation of collections, whether heritage or not, keep in mind that the responsibility to those objects are forever. So you have no business asking for donations, or you have no business putting up a museum if you are not keen on preserving them and allocating resources for their upkeep and maintenance. It's a prerequisite. Kasi para yung
sir, kundi yung pag-maintain.
Pag-maintain, and it's a lifetime commitment. So yun, hindi ko bang para kang nag-anak, hindi yung pag ayaw mo na, papamigay mo na yung anak mo, di ba? No. So, kinunceive mo siya, talagang sa'yo siya for life, hanggang dulo, parang ganun. So, and it's your responsibility to take care of it and provide resources for the upkeep of it. Yun siya talaga.
Narinig ko sa mga napag-uusapan na ganyan, meron natawag na on loan, no? Ano ba ibig sabihin nun? Para sa kabatiran ng ating mga kabayani.
Sir?
Ng on loan?
Yeah. Sa sa museum collections po, or sa museum practice, we have several types of museum collections based on ownership. So we have po on loan collection, meron ding temporary loan din pa, and then the donation. So yung on loan po, it's loan to the museum for an indefinite period of time. So may papel po yan. And then it's indicated in there kung gaano katagal siya pinapahiram. 5, 10, 15 years, as may pirmahan sila. Meron din naman pong loan, temporarily loaned for a very specific exhibition. So, umiram ako ng banga kasi para makumpleto yung exhibition ng mga burial jars, mga ganyan. So, it's being borrowed specifically for a very specific exhibition lang, which is shorter in duration. And then we have the donated ones. Ito yung supposedly and ideally walang strings attached. Yan yung binigay ng donor to the museum. And then the museum is to take care of it. Of course, syempre may mga conditions pa rin naman yun doon sa donations nila. Mga ganun po. So, may mga corresponding documents for each for each procedure or process. Dapat, yun at yung natututunan ng mga nag-museum practice with their family museum or community museum o sinasabi yung maliliit na museum, dapat po natututunan yung mga ganong technicalities.
Documentation.
Opo, documentation.
Pero narinig ko rin na merong iba na na issue yata yung pagkakaroon ng insurance. Meron bang mga ganun?
Opo. Sir, meron po insurance na anong tawag mo dito? Yung pang as a whole for entire museum collection, for buildings, for mga untoward incidences. Pero meron din po insurances na for specific exhibition lang din. Ganon. So, binabayaran mo talaga ng mga premium. Mahalaga yung insurance po not only for the protection of the lender but also for the protection of the museum. Diba? So, it is ideal that we have that, but in reality po, it's also financially challenging for small museums or small entities. But it is ideally it should be done. Opo, it should be done ideally.
Kasi meron tayong mga museum, di ba? Sabi nga natin, mga muebles, di ba? Meron namang mga museum na mga rare painting, di ba? Mga gano'n, di ba? So, depende nga siguro sa sa halaga sa value ng isang museum.
Valuation, yung tawag natin. Tama po. Yung fair market value na sinasabi nila, tapos valuation, opo. Doon po nakabase yung mga insurance. So mahalaga po sa museum yung kanilang documentation. Kasi doon po lahat yan doon po lahat nakabase yung mga information na kakailanganin for matters like this, not only for insurance po, but also for condition report, yung tinatawag natin. Dapat may regular monitoring kung ano na yung status ng object. Kasi lahat naman po ng collection ay sinasabi natin may deterioration eventually. What museums are trying to do is to retard or delay the deterioration by putting interventions or scientific practices to retard po the deterioration. So, importante po yung condition reporting next to documentation kasi doon mo po matatrack kung meron ka bang ginawang practice that made the deterioration faster or that caused the deterioration of a certain object na nawala siya, nadurog pala, nagkaroon ng infestation. So, nandun po yung track ng condition ng object if we do regular condition reporting. So, mabigat po yung trabaho ng collections manager for museums. Kasi yun yung
kasi sabi nga natin na maraming gustong magtayo ng museum kasi siguro sa mga bahay nila, so yung binabanggit mo na documentation, parang dapat merong mga records, does it require specialized skill? Natututunan na ba yan sa baka kailangan mo ng isang kurso diyan? Ano ba ang ang requirement. At saan makukuha ng mga tao ito? Ganitong klaseng skill na o
Ano
baka
sir,
naman, kaya na lang ganun.
ano naman po, may mga capacity building training. Sa Pilipinas kasi sir, unfortunately, we have yet to come up with a wala pang may museology degree in full.
Mhm.
I'm not sure with
Mhm.
you, pero parang wala pa po. There are arts management courses, but these are very,
Mhm.
parang very generic. So
Mhm.
museology per se, it's still not offered in the
Mhm.
country. In fact, ang daming aspects pa po ng museology. May museum education, may museum,
Mhm.
collections management, mga ganyan. So, yung mga practitioners po natin dito sa Pilipinas, they were able to get their trainings elsewhere. And they've been very generous in sharing their skills or trainings also, especially for co-museum practitioners.
Mhm.
It's important po to be part of a network because the museum network in the Philippines is very small. So it's
Mhm.
important po to be part of the network. And then, especially for the younger, maka-younger ako, di ba? Yung mga younger museum practitioners po to be engaged in this capacity
Mhm.
building para sustain po yung ating practice. And then and also for succession. Kasi we recognize that hindi po siya dapat po tuloy-tuloy meron tayong pool, meron tayong
Mhm.
pool of museum workers who will continue on with the practice, and
Saka yun,
improve their skills
yeah.
throughout the years.
So,
Yun.
do you think sa ngayon ang mga university wala pa siyang parang kakayahan to offer museology?
Um, UST po is offering, yun ang alam ko po, pero yung museology po, I have yet to check, sir. Hindi ko kasi kayang,
Mhm.
hindi ko pa naman talaga siya na-survey. So baka naman, meron, hindi ko po alam kung meron sa UP, pero I heard parang wala pa din. Museology per se. May mga museum courses po, may museum studies, mga ganyan. May mga
Mhm.
ganon. So, if that will qualify, then UP has it.
Pero para
Yun.
dun sa mga ating mga kababayan na halimbawa ay karaniwan ganito ginagawa si LGU o itong tourism officer, no? Ikaw na
Oo
lang ang
eh. Ganon yung nangyayari. Totoo.
ano ang may papayo niyo pag ganun? No? Ano yan, meron, sabi mo meron mga specific training program for that, right?
Ang maipapayo ko dyan, sir, katulad rin ng pinapayo natin sa mga, yung mga conservation practices, scientific
Mhm.
conservation practices. Pag hindi mo
Mhm.
alam gawin, kumonsulta. Di ba?
Mm.
So, ganun din naman. Kasi,
Mhm.
mahirap, I mean, gusto mong gawin siya ng tama, gusto mo simulan siya ng tama, at kung wala mang expertise sa inyo, there will be people or to assist. And there is an agency
Mhm.
who can lead you to, um, who can connect you to these people. So
Okay.
NCCA is there, 'di ba? So uh, meron din naman tayong mga national institutions, meron tayong national
Mhm.
museum. I mean, they can explore seeking help from there. We have
Mhm.
NHCP or the National Historical Commission too. So, pwede rin
Mhm.
kasi maano na rin po very dynamic din ang mga curators ng NHCP ngayon, mga bata. So, and they've been
Talaga.
doing left and right of capacity building and mga talks na may matututunan at matututunan
Yeah,
po. May resources ngayon lalo na po ito yung mga bagong ibinigay ng pandemic eh. It made
tama.
it made po our connections easier
Yeah,
and
online.
more
Mhm.
accessible yung online. So kahit po naka-online mode tayo, yung information po are more accessible online because of the pandemic. Yun lang, how
Mhm.
to put everything into practice is another thing. Kasi theoretical lang yun, oo.
Tama, tama. Eh, ma'am, tanong ko lang, before we discuss yung sabi niyong network, no? Gusto ko malaman kung meron bang a sense of like accreditation in museum in the Philippines? Yung ina-accredit
Um,
mo. Oh, yeah, kasi hindi, ano muna, no? Ang alam ko kasi ba, merong mga, o baka naman because of tourism purposes, not really the museum itself. Kasi minsan may nakikita ko mga museum, may mga ano na, di ba, nakalagay na post na
DOT.
DOT, accredited, gano'n.
Kahit po kami DOT accredited, mga kami sticker. Yun. Ano sir, honestly, kasi 'di ba I used to be part of the National Committee on Museums also under
Mhm.
NCCA. So I also sat as vice chair for from 2017 to 2019.
Mhm.
And this museum accreditation became part of our discussion. We wanted to initiate
Okay.
it somehow. So
Mm.
I am not sure though if the new if this has been taken on um, after we left, and if they if some have done it, but it's ideal that we should have museum accreditation.
Okay.
Kaso sir, ang una kasing requirement talaga dun sa museum accreditation is the museum should be a legal entity. So may
Yeah,
iba
oo
po,
nga.
number one talaga yon. So marami po actually tayong museum practitioners or museum organizations that are not existing legally. That when I say
Mm.
existing legally, hindi sila registered, yung mga ganun
Tama.
ba, yung legal
Mm.
establishment nila. So yan yung unang-unang prerequisite. Ngayon, sabi namin, so parang we were on a divide on being inclusive and being progressive. Yun,
Mhm.
'di ba? Kasi we'd like to professionalize the museum practice. But at the same time, we also recognize that we have yet to do a lot of parang handholding pagdating po dun
Mhm.
sa ibang mga museums natin. So,
Mhm.
marami pa pong gagawin. Lalo na po yung mga may opportunities po to lead in terms of museum work on a national scale.
Oo
Yun.
nga, ano? So, ano, no, tawag dito, parang, paano mo nga naman i-regulate ang mga museums kung hindi sila, wala silang legal entity, ano?
Kaya nga, sir. Pero hindi mo rin naman sila pwedeng bitawan, 'di ba?
Mhm.
Kasi their realities are also different from,
Mhm.
varying realities po eh, lalo na kung national yung pag-uusapan natin.
Mhm.
So, paano mo gagawin yung inclusivity?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then at the same time, paano mo rin naman gagawin na maging accredited lahat, maging progressive at maging professional lahat. So, ah hindi siya mabilisang trabaho, I think.
So, from that accreditation na hindi nga, wala, merong mga iba hindi pa na-accredit, no? That
Ano
leads
na
me to
siya
the
ngayon,
another question, no?
the
Yeah.
most that we can do in terms, or the most that we've done in terms of accreditation is to encourage museums to be part of a regional museum association, which
Nice.
is katulad po ng SLAM o yung Southern Luzon
Yeah.
Association of Museums.
Mm.
So SLAM has counterpart po in other regions. So
Medyo.
meron tayong AGMAM for Greater Manila or NCR. We have
Mm.
Central Visayas, may Northern Luzon, may
Mhm.
Central Luzon, may Eastern Visayas, may Mindanao, yung ganyan, sir. So that's the most that we have in terms of accreditation. So if museums can affiliate with these regional museum associations, then it's easier po to, yung level of communication pababa,
Mhm.
mas madali, and then it's easier to give assistance in
Tama.
whatever form. Opo. So these regional museum associations po are being convened by the NCCA or the National
Hmm.
Commission for Culture and the Arts.
Pero
So
ano,
yun
ano,
siya.
Misil, no, alam natin ang NCCA ay, for example, if you want to apply for a competitive grant, right? So merong
Hmm.
mga accreditation din yan, no? So,
Oo, diba?
di ba? So,
Kaya
kung
kailangan
ikaw ay individual museum, you can get a grant unless papasok ka dun sa, yun nga, yung isang group, isang
sa ano
network, pero isang proposal lang yun.
tsaka
Di ba?
isang ano lang yun, sir, isa sa mga criteria. Kasi
Mm-hmm.
part of the most important criteria for NCC accreditation or NCCA grant for that matter is you as a legal entity with
Ayun na nga.
registration, financial
Definitely
good financial standing or performance, yung mga ganon. Or if not, an LGU an LGU
Mhm.
application. So kung hindi ka man po private na SEC registered or what, at least LGU ka or government
Mhm.
institution. So yun po siya pwede.
Okay. So, kailangan talaga pala, mas maganda pa rin yung registered, no? Para
Oo,
you
kasi
have
ano ka mo, legal
certificate.
entity ka. Oo. May birth
Oo,
certificate ka, may birthright ka,
tama.
di ba? So kung
Kaya nga kami sa ano di ba yung mga study centers, no? Nagbuo kami ng Association of Study Centers in the Philippines. Yan, network lang siya, no? Pero when you apply individually, napakahirap kasi nga kailangan mo ng
correct. Mm.
personality, legal
Yes,
personality.
yes. Ito sir yung ito yung reality po ng mga museums kasi especially in the regions. Yung
Mhm.
kanilang establishment or kanilang anong tawag dito, governing body.
Mhm.
Paano sila nag-exist? Yan po yung kasi parang makailangan clearly defined yung kanilang governing body, LGU ka ba, private ka ba, university ka ba, o the
Mhm.
museum is under whom, who's funding it, who's running it, ganyan. Ah, sa pagtatayo ng isang museo, ito yung dapat maunang malinaw, 'di ba? So may collection ka, oo, pero dapat isa sa pinakamalinaw yung iyong organizational yung organizational element ng isang
Mhm.
yun yung doon. For sustainability, just to ensure
Mhm.
na hindi siya tipong we exist today, tomorrow we'll see. Ganun. Kasi nga,
Fly
you
by
have
night,
you have an obligation to the collection you're borrowing or your
Yun na
and
nga,
in the same manner, kung ikaw collector na nagpapahiram, these are things that you should be mindful about or you should look for, 'di ba?
Meron lang akong trivia question sa'yo kasi nababanggit mo yung mga management ng collection Meron na bang nakulong na curator? Parang tinakbo niya yung collection, yung gano'n.
ay, hindi ko po
Meron na
alam
bang
kung paano sagutin. Hindi ko
halimbawa
alam. Pero
hindi ka na-register. Pinahiram mo yung mga
sir,
collection mo, wala ka pang alam na gano'n?
wala ako
Wala
nabalitaan
din.
kasi
Wala.
siguro yan yung mga dapat kung ang magiging basis natin ay RA 166 yung heritage law. Baka ito yung
Mhm.
mga dapat na mga reviewin para may ngipin yung law.
Hmm, tama,
'Di
tama,
ba?
ano.
Oo.
So,
Kasi
how
parang
yun sa
malambot
tingin mo,
po yung RA 166 eh.
kailangan pang ano 'no, i-review 'no, from time
Hmm.
to time yung law 'no?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hindi ko kayang sagutin sir kung may nakulong. Pero siguro administratively may mga
Mhm.
sanction.
Tama,
Depende po dun sa organization.
tama, tama.
So kung may sanction man, it's because of that the organization has their own guidelines or their own sets of
Tama.
policies. It would be that. Hindi siya exactly yung mga tipo bang, ano tawag mo doon? Yung
Parang
pang
criminal case kaagad, yung mga gano'n 'no?
sa doon, na ganun. Yun, parang
Oo
hindi
nga,
ko lang
siyempre
sure.
depende 'no. Siguro
Oo.
ano, ang bilis na ng oras matatapos na tayo ma'am 'no?
Talaga ba?
Sige, baka makalimutan ko yung isa kong tanong ano, kasi Heritage Museum, mga lumang gamit, pamana, 'di ba? Naka-encounter na ba kayo nung karga? 'Di ba? May
Ano
karga yung
yun? Ah!
may karga yung ano, yung heirloom, yung mga gano'n. Kasi
Oo naman.
sa mga kwento kasi ganyan no, yung mga lumang gamit ni Lola, yung salamin, nakikita, yung gano'n. Ano lang, based on your experience, kasi masyado kayong familiar I assume marami na kayo napuntahan, siyempre ng mga heritage museum. Yung mga kwento nila Lola, ganyan, no?
Correct.
Anong experience ko niyan?
Ano pa naman sir, 'di ba? November pa, 'di ba? So,
Yeah.
abot-abot pa 'to, mga buntot pa 'to ng Halloween. Buntot ng Halloween pa 'to mga questions ni Sir Manny. Ako, sir, siguro, I hindi ko siguro I can speak for 85% of museum workers. Lahat kami may ganyang experience, one way or another. Or maybe mga cultural workers, one way or another. We have experience such as this. Depende lang sa kung gaano kalala yung mga naging experience, 'di ba? Depende kung anong klaseng capacity din siguro meron ka. So pagka kasi nag-work ka rin sa museum, you recognize also mga intangible elements, intangible aspects of
kasama pala yun. Ano?
so, and then you also recognize the stories that are attached to these tangible movable objects, whether bago sila or not. And
yan ba yung provenance? Kasama yan sa provenance?
kasama
Yung
yung
mga stories?
provenance, yung stories associated with it. And hindi mo minsan yung may isip mo lang magtanong kapag ka nauna na yung yung mga tumayo na yung balahibo mo. Parang nabalik mata ka, saka mo matatanong, teka lang, ba't parang may kakaiba? Ano bang kwento nitong doon ka mapapatanong. So minsan din kasi may mga bisita na sila mismo yung magkukwento sa'yo. So kung ikaw personally don't experience anything, pero may mga bisita na sila yung may experiences. And then they will ask you and then you will be surprised, ganyan. So gagana yung mga investigative skills mo. Yung ginagamit nilang yung ginagamit nilang term ngayon, sir, marites level. Yung mga di ba ginagamit ng mga, sabi ko, sino si Marites? Ayun. Anong latest? Yan. Doon mo doon mo masasagap kung yung mga kwento. And you cannot pretend that that these stories have no value, or you cannot park it as just like that, no? Lalo na kung paulit-ulit na ilan yung experience. So yun, meron talaga. So, yun masasabi ko, yes.
Pero sa mga kwento ninyo, ng mga cultural workers, no? Meron na bang kwento ng mga nag-levitate, yung gano'n, ng mga gamit? Wala naman.
Ay, ako, wala po sa akin. Buti na lang.
Wala pa.
Wala po kaming ganun kalalang experience.
Wala pa.
Yung pinaka lang, teka lang sir, ano ibig mo ba sabihin ng levitate?
Yung gamit.
Yung gamit? Wala kaming experience. Lang, yung experience namin, yung tipo bang gulatan, so tatakbo ka, tapos hindi ka makakapag shoot ng susi, tapos sa doorknob. Yung ganong level.
Ay, kinabahan.
Ganong level.
Hindi talaga wala yun, no? Mga kababayan, mga kabayani. No? Kasi nga, ayun, lumang gamit kasi, no? Yun ang idea doon, mga lumang gamit, may kwento, no? So, nagbibigay pa nga na spice minsan yung ganun na
correct,
lalo siya curious. Kasi gamit lang siya, di ba? Pag tinignan mo, dumaan ka, kung wala siyang kwento, wala, no? So, pag
kwento talaga. Yeah, totoo naman. Totoo talaga, sir. It happens. I mean, the experiences would happen with several people, but not to all. Timing lang.
Sense,
Oo, yun. Ganun.
So, ma'am, halos wala lang tayong oras. Ito kung bilis, di ba? Kwentuhan lang tayo, di ba?
Oo nga.
So, ganyan talaga ang buhay, no? Natatapos oras, no? So, ano ang mga maipapayo nyo sa ating mga kababayan, no, na gustong magkaroon ng isang heritage museum, gusto magtanong, ano yung mga dapat nilang i-considera, no? Bago sila magtayo ng isang heritage museum, para at least meron silang guide, no, kung paano nila gagawin.
Sige sir, thank you for that, for the opportunity to tawag mo dyan, share experiences po for others. So, ang unang-una po siguro kung maipapayo is for those who are planning to put up their museums, more or less, I am assuming, or it is right to assume that you're planning to put up a museum. It's because either you have a collection or there's a mission or a vision have a mission that you'd like to do, or you're envisioning something. So the first thing really is to um, start the museum organizationally. And ano to, parang yun po talaga yun. Make sure na your museum is a legal entity and establish clearly the organizational lines from your whoever is the governing body that will head or that will sustain the museum, whether it's a university, it's an LGU, it's a private organization, ganyan. So, pag-aralan ninyo how museums are organized or are done strategically, establish your vision mission, and you start with that. Uh, in putting up a museum, the first thing that you have to do is to sit down and brainstorm, because it all must start on the drawing board, and it all must start with writing. So, ang nangyayari po kasing sa mga nakita natin na ibang museum, nauna silang manghingi ng gamit without really planning to do with the things. Nauna silang magkaroon ng space kasi may nagbigay ng space o may nabakanting munisipyo, and then may nanghingi ng gamit. But the pieces that you have may not tell exactly the story that you'd like to tell. So the first to do, sit down, identify your who you can brainstorm with, and then envision what you'd like to happen for that museum, and then the rest will follow. Yun po talaga. For naman po students, if there are students who are listening, we are enjoining everyone, at least at this point, to do advocacy for museum, to explore museum work or arts management courses, because we need young blood. I know I look young, but I'm not so young. Di ba? And we need young blood who are very passionate, because museum work really needs passionate people. And we need bright minds to take the museum practice to the next level in the next generations to come. Yun po. Thank you, Sir Manny.
Ako, maraming salamat with that note, no? Siguradong natuto ang ating mga kasama sa industriya, industriya, no?
Nag-enjoy din ako, sir. Salamat.
Diba, Heritage Museums, no? So, ma'am, maraming salamat. Pero huwag muna kayong aalis, no? At babalikan ko kayo. Off ka muna kayo at i-off lang natin ang ating programa. So, maraming salamat, ma'am. Maraming salamat po. So, yan po, no, ang ating panayam sa director, no, ng Museo de la Salle, si Miss Cecille, no, Gelicame, no, at napakinggan naman natin na napakarami niyang mga na ipaliwanag na mga bagay-bagay tungkol sa Heritage Museum. No? Kaya tumutok lang po tayo, kung may mga tanong tayo sa isa-isa amin, baka na masagot po natin. No? At sa darating pong linggo, sa susunod, pag-uusapan naman natin ang tungkol naman sa local library building collection. No? So with that po, maraming salamat po sa mga nanood. No? At patuloy po tayo tumutok sa Kabayani. Follow, subscribe, comment below. No? At para lalong lumawig po ang ating kaalaman tungkol sa kasaysayan at kultura ng ating bansa. Maraming salamat po. Mag-ingat po tayo palagi.